Horror has always had its titans. Jason, Ghostface, the girl who takes antidepressants on an empty stomach. Horror games have had their titans too, mostly Resident Evil and Silent Hill. What we're talking about here isn't one of those titans, it's more of a cousin. The mid-2000s was a strange time for horror. With Gears of War, Call of Duty, Max Payne, and Halo 3 taking over the charts, survival horror was starting to be left by the wayside. Developers had to pivot, and Resident Evil would show them how. As survival horror was temporarily phased out from the mainstream, games like Resident Evil 4, 5, and Condemned began to carve out a new generation of horror. Action horror. It was niche, but survivable enough. Speaking of Max Payne, its developer Remedy Entertainment, who would throw their Sam Lake in the horror ring in 2010. An action thriller called Alan Wake. Now, thrillers have always been horror adjacent, but Alan Wake really treaded the line between the two. So much so that I believe calling it a thriller was only done to make people a little bit less reprehensive to the thought of Max Payne developers creating a horror game. While not survival horror, this is definitely in one of the many realms of horror, settling itself into that action horror niche. While the gameplay is more action, the story is horror at its finest, preying on extremely common fears while amplifying the story to Silent Hill levels of confusion in the best way. So sit back, grab some candles and a flashlight, and let's dive into the world of Alan Wake. Our tale begins with a dream. Famous writer Alan Wake's dream, in fact. While hurriedly driving for some unknown reason, he crashes into a hitchhiker, killing him, or at least so we thought. We move towards the lighthouse in the distance, the hitchhiker chasing us. Ushered into a cabin by a balding man in a varsity jacket named Stewart, that checks, he's killed outside by the hitchhiker. Trapped in the cabin, the TV has come to life with an eye on the screen chanting, "Die, die, die," before being told to follow the light outside, learning we're safe in the light. As a giant light in the sky tells us his best what's pad riddle.
For he did not know that beyond the lake he called home lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been. To its ports I've been. Do you understand?
Huh?
He guides us, telling us the hitchhiker has been taken over by the dark presence, protecting him. The only way to make him vulnerable is light. Naturally, the disembodied voice in the sky has a spare flashlight that he's able to give us, and after driving away the darkness, he gives us a gun, telling us that he's still a threat. Fighting our way to the lighthouse, we learn that this is the last safe place from the darkness on Earth. Once entering it, we're woken up by Alan's wife, Alice, saying that they've arrived. Where have they arrived? Bright Falls, Washington for vacation, a picturesque town that is legally distinct from Twin Peaks. After talking to a radio host on the boat, we get a call from Alan's agent, Barry.
Hey, bestseller, how's my favorite writer? Are you there yet?
We'll talk about him more later. Being dropped off at the diner to get the key to our cabin from Mr. Stuckey, we meet an obsessed waitress named Rose. So obsessed that she has a cutout of Alan right by the entrance to the diner. After putting on some music for escaped mental patients,
I could really use a tune right now. Coconut, number 6 in the jukebox.
we head to the back, being told to be careful of the dark by a woman peering down the hallway. After failing to find Mr. Stuckey, a lady tells us he was unable to make it, giving us the key instead, telling us to enjoy her cabin and that she'll check in with us later. As we drive off with Alice, Mr. Stuckey stumbles out, yelling that we forgot the keys. After arriving at the cabin, we learn Alice has a severe phobia of the dark, so she asks us to turn the power onto the cabin. Turning the generator on, we head back inside, finding Alice upstairs saying she has a surprise for us. That surprise, however, is a typewriter. As it turns out, Alice brought us here to help us get past a 2-year writer's block. Adding to that, she begins to tell us about Dr. Hartman, a local doctor who has a clinic to help artists. Enraged, Alan storms out in the dark, wanting to be left alone. Very quickly, however, the power to the cabin cuts off. Hearing Alice's screams, Alan runs back. Dodging a murder of crows, we find a broken banister off the porch, Alice in the lake. After jumping in after her, we fade to black. Alan wakes up in his car hanging over a cliff, clearly in an accident. Alice is nowhere to be seen. However, there's Dr. Hartman's book to be found in the trunk, so does that mean the conversation actually took place? Seeing a gas station in the distance, we head towards it, finding a blinding light that fades to a bunch of papers. These papers are a manuscript for a book entitled Departure, the title of Alan Wake's yet-to-be-written novel, even naming him as the author. Reading it, it describes the hero being attacked by an axe murderer in the woods at night. Finding our way into a lumber yard, we find writing in yellow paint telling us that they're called Taken. We also find a man draped in shadow clearly practicing his sales pitch.
Premium cabins for rent in
Oh, hell.
This man is Carl Stuckey, the man who was supposed to give us our keys, and guess what he has? Well, if you guess an axe, you win. After finding a gun, a flashlight, and stopping to watch a legally distinct episode of The Twilight Zone called Night Springs,
bestows immortality on those who advance it to elevate all of
we defeat Mr. Stuckey before arriving at the gas station. Once there, we learn that an entire week has passed since arriving to Bright Falls. Inside, a TV turns on showing Alan in the study of the cabin, saying he'll keep writing to bring her back and the story will come true. If he stops, she's lost. We use the phone inside to call for help. Sheriff Sarah Breaker arriving on the scene. We try to explain what happened, the accident, the island, the cabin on the lake, only to be met with her telling us there hasn't been an island on the lake since a big eruption in the 70s. Bewildered, Alan gets in the car, arriving at the lake where, just as she had stated, was filled with nothing but water. Back at the sheriff's station, we're examined by a questionable doctor in a fishing outfit before finding Sheriff Breaker. While being questioned, we receive a call from an unknown number. On the other end, Alice's voice asks for help before a man tells us to stop talking to law enforcement and to head outside to the abandoned truck and to meet him at Lover's Peak at midnight. In the abandoned truck, we find Alice's driver's license, showing us that the kidnapper meant business. Answering Barry's phone call, we tell him to pick us up. On the way back in, a TV flashes on, Alan typing away in the study saying that if he stops, the world dies and the darkness takes over. Alice's life on the line before he vows to save her once more. In the lobby, we find the sheriff talking to Dr. Hartman. After questioning him if he spoke with Alice, Alan gives us his best Will Smith impression before Barry comes storming into the police station.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
You yokels won't know what hit you once I sick my lawyers on your asses.
Fully adorned with a red puffer jacket over a Hawaiian shirt and khaki shorts. This fucking nerd, I love him.
We don't need a replay of that thing with the paparazzi. I thought they were gonna lock you up.
After Barry finishes threatening everyone with legal action, we leave. Alan tells Barry everything that happened. Of course, he didn't believe anything besides Alice being kidnapped. However, Barry learning that Alan had wrote something was enough to make him stay. After signing the paperwork to check into the cabin, we begin to argue with Barry about what to do. After setting off, we arrive back at the visitor center. We find Rusty, the man we spoke to earlier to get checked in, injured, saying it happened just like on the page of a manuscript he found, said it would. After coming back from attempting to turn on the power, we find Rusty corrupted by the dark presence. Defeating him, we continue towards Lover's Peak, Barry calling us on the way panicking, saying he now believes us because he's seeing things outside. With Taken closing in, we're saved by the kidnapper, saying that we would need to move because that's the way the story goes. Fighting our way up to Lover's Peak, we hit a dead end where we speak to the kidnapper, who reveals that he wants the entire manuscript before a tumble takes Alan and the kidnapper off a balcony. An armed Alan Wake now chasing an unarmed kidnapper, We make our way out of the woods before getting a call from Barry saying that crows are circling the house. We get the keys to a truck, a TV flashing on with a muttering Alan once more. Yada yada yada, write the story, save Alice, the same thing we've been seeing him say as he appears increasingly frustrated. After racing back to the cabin, committing our second felony of the night, and a second of many more, the kidnapper calls us to demand the manuscript once more. Alan says it's not done, asking for a week, but he's only given 2 days and told to meet at the coal mine. After saving Barry, Alan spends the night and morning hours trying to write, only finding he's unable to put words to paper. Meanwhile, the next day, Barry gets a call from Rose, saying that she's found the manuscript and to meet her in the trailer park. However, her voice is vacant as she speaks. This might be due to her being controlled by the lady who gave us the keys at the diner.
Good girl.
Arriving at the trailer park, the sheriff says there's an FBI agent waiting for us, wanting to meet us at the station. On the way to Rose's trailer, Barry reveals that Bright Falls is filled with strange happenings, all centering around Cauldron Lake. Apparently, the island was owned by a famous writer named Thomas Zane. However, upon searching, Barry couldn't find anything he wrote. Zane also loved diving, naming the island Diver's Isle, the name we saw in the cabin we went to with Alice. In the 70s, a volcano erupted, bringing the island and Zane down into the lake. A week before that, Thomas Zane's lover, Barbara Jagger, drowned in the lake, turning into a local urban legend who comes for you in the dark. Sound familiar? All the articles written about it were written by Cynthia Weaver, the lady who was warning us not to go into the back of the diner because we can get hurt in the dark. Making it to Rose's trailer, she invites us in, giving us coffee to drink, saying she knows what we need, a muse to inspire. After realizing that she doesn't have the pages, Barry and Alan pass out, the coffee they drank poisoned. While passed out, we find out the light we've been seeing is Thomas Zane. He warns us that it's coming for us, hiding in Barbara's skin. He's too weak to stop it, and he needs us to turn the lights on. Barbara appears, saying that she promised she would visit us, and tells us to finish what we started, and to get back to work. After waking up, we learn that it's nighttime, now only 12 hours left until we have to turn in the manuscript. As we tried to leave the trailer park, we're cut off by Agent Nightingale, the FBI agent the sheriff told us about. Clearly, he has little concern for anything and anyone else as he shoots at Alan as he tries to escape, even though the trailer park manager is right in the line of fire. Running through the woods, we evade the FBI, eventually the dark presence catching up to us as we evade it as well. We arrive at the radio station, hoping to ask the radio host we met on the boat to let us borrow his car to get to the mine. However, we're interrupted by Agent Nightingale once more, taking another shot at us even though an innocent bystander is right in the way again. Narrowly escaping, we make our way to the mines. Oh, good. The darkness can possess inanimate objects now, too. After fighting a bulldozer, we find a truck, using it to make our way to the mine. We wait there, however, the kidnapper never showed. Instead, he calls Alan, telling him to meet him at the lookout point on the nearby mountain. Making our way forward, we come across another TV, Alan saying that anything except writing is hard. He also says how downstairs he found a shoebox full of papers and books written by Thomas Zane, commending his work that focused around the lake and manifesting things that would shape the world, while the lake takes over his girlfriend and his dark gateway. Great. And Alan Wake, with his profound knowledge, decides to use these concepts for his book. Eventually, making our way to the lookout point, we hear the kidnapper screaming and crying, begging, and saying that they don't have Alan's wife before he's swept up in a tornado of the dark presence. Alan managing to light a flare before he's swept up, it spits him down into the lake. Visions of Alice, him typing, a diving helmet, and someone helping him out of the water passing through his head. Coming to, we fade in and out, the figure helping us turning from Alice to Dr. Hartman. He tells us that we're at his clinic in the middle of a psychotic episode due to Alice dying. He tries for a good while to convince us this being the case as he shows us around, eventually introducing us and leaving us to the best characters in this game, the Anderson brothers.
I'd like to bash his head in with a hammer.
Oh, he'd love to fish out our secrets, but he has no clue. He's not crazy enough. Not crazy like us, Sonny.
Yeah!
Being crazy's a requirement, Sonny. Who else could understand the world when it's like this? It takes crazy to know crazy.
Odin and Tor tell us we have to go to their farm while calling us Zane. Apparently, there's something there that will help clear our heads as they give us a page, saying that Zane would have stopped writing if his assistant Emil didn't push him to continue. Who is Emil? Well, Dr. Emil Hartman, of course. Heading to our room to write, the Anderson brothers begin a commotion, knocking out a nurse with a hammer. This allows us to get the keys and head to Dr. Hartman's office. On the way, we find Barry locked in a room with the cutout of Alan from the diner? What? Arriving in Hartman's office, we find the pages of the manuscript that were confiscated. Dr. Hartman walks in trying to convince us one last time that we're delusional. However, at gunpoint, he cracks. Perhaps due to his own shortcomings of having no artistic talent, his goal was to manipulate Alan to use his ability, just like all the other artists in his care. He was the one who ordered the kidnapper to tell Alan that he had his wife, all to try to contain him. The dark presence arrives just as we lock Dr. Hartman in with it. Escaping the now overrun clinic, Alan pieces it together. The dark presence is holding Alice in the bottom of the lake, the same lake that can bring stories to life. However, the dark presence twists those stories. After arriving at the Andersons' farm, playing a stage show,
God damn.
and blowing up a shed, we move into the house. Turning the power on, a record begins to play saying,
We need to find
Cynthia Weaver. Then Barry, in his infinite wisdom, suggests drinking the moonshine he found.
I'm a writer, god damn it.
Correct! Alan, the fucking doormat he is, agrees. This turns out for the best, however, as a drunken dream takes him back to figure out what happened the night of Alice's disappearance. The dark presence used his grief, saying that he can write a story to bring her back, all while editing it to turn it more and more into a horror story, the outcome being the dark presence taking over the town. Somehow, Alan knew this, writing himself as the protagonist to stop the dark presence, as well as writing Tom Zane to come save him after 1 week, leading to him escaping and crashing the car. Waking up from the dream, Alan is greeted by Agent Nightingale, saying that he'll pay while, of course, holding a gun on him. Waking up in jail with Barry, Alan speaks with Nightingale through the bars. It turns out that he blames Alan for the death of his partner, who was taken by the dark presence. As the lights flicker, the dark presence closes in. Sheriff Breaker tells Alan that she's trusting him, yelling at Agent Nightingale, doubting he's there on official business and critiquing his soberness or lack of. Nightingale is sucked up by the dark presence. Sheriff Breaker tells Barry to stay back and call a list of names, telling him to give the code word Night Springs, like the TV show, get it? Alan and Sheriff Breaker fight their way through the city, eventually being interrupted by a screaming Barry as we find out he was chased out of the station. Reaching the fire department, all three escape in a helicopter, flying towards the decommissioned power plant that Cynthia has taken up residence in. After being chased by multiple murders of crows, Alan falls out of the helicopter, making its way on foot while Sheriff and Barry try to shake them off. Arriving at the power plant, Cynthia scolds Alan for being so reckless. She says that what Alan needs is in the well-lit room at the dam before they set off in a water pipe that Cynthia has lined with lights. We also learn that Thomas Zane has been in almost the same situation, with Barbara drowning in the lake and the dark presence growing as Thomas tried to bring Barbara back. The dark presence's powers grew, Dr. Hartman encouraging Thomas to continue. Eventually, Thomas realized what was happening, however, it was too late. The only thing he could do was attempt to write himself out of existence, which explains why Barry couldn't find any of his work. While doing this, though, he left a failsafe, insurance in case it happened again. Like right now, anything left in a shoebox would not disappear, like the shoebox at the cabin. While in the pipe, Alan calls Barry, telling him to meet them at the dam. Right after, we hear Barry screaming before the helicopter crashes, shaking the ground. Alan peeks his head out of the pipe to see the downed helicopter. Against Cynthia's protests, Alan leaves the safety of the pipe, still heading towards the dam, but also finding Barry and Sheriff Breaker along the way. Narrowly avoiding the dark presence who continued to try to use Alice to control Alan, we arrive at the dam, heading to the well-lit room. Inside, we find another shoebox. Here, it's clear that Thomas Zane knew what he was doing. He didn't specify a single shoebox, so anything inside any type of shoebox remained. Inside that shoebox was not only a page of one of Thomas's stories, but a light switch called the clicker that Alan's mom gave him when he was a kid. The page spoke about Alan, telling the story of how Alan's mom gave it to him, saying it was from his father, who he never knew, which only gave it more power. There was no possible way it could naturally be here, as Alan had given it to Alice to help with her nyctophobia. The clicker was the key, the one thing that could defeat the darkness and possibly save Alice. We race back to Cauldron Lake, taking advantage of the brief bit of daylight given to us by pressing the clicker. Before long, the dark presence catches up, forcing us to fight our way back. Taken, flying objects, cars driving by themselves, even giving Christine a run for her money, you name it. The dark presence had to throw everything it could at Alan to stop him from returning to the lake. Against all odds, Alan makes it back, diving in just as Zane had did before. Waking up in his bed, Alice tells him that it was just a dream, but something is off. Alan knows, writing the clicker back into reality and into his hands as Thomas visits him. Here, Thomas tells us to go back to his cabin before we meet a smiling Alan named Mr. Scratch, being told everyone will meet him while we're gone. Making it back to the cabin, Alan takes the clicker, places it into the heart of the dark presence and presses it, banishing it, for now. However, Alan knows he has to finish the story, and he knows he can't just write a happily ever after. Thomas tried that over and over, but it didn't work. There needs to be balance. Alan's solution for that? Have himself stay in the dark place. A life for a life, so that Alice can return. The world moves forward, Alan realizing the dark place has far more depth than he could have ever imagined. The dark place is different. It looked just like the real world, but more surreal, replaying his story over and over like it was a TV show. This drove Alan mad, the sane part of him splitting to make its way back to him, trying to compose himself. Against all odds once more, Alan finds his way back to sanity, beginning his next novel, Return. Alan Wake is a different type of beast. Luckily, Alan Wake came out when games weren't afraid to experiment. We would have a more traditional horror game later, but for now, we had something extremely unique. The story was confusing and ambiguous, something that was starting to be phased out from more complete endings at that time. To this day, so many theories float around. Why did the Anderson brothers call Alan Zane? Did he just remind them of Thomas so they confused the two in their old age? Or was Alan rushing to finish his story so much that he adapted parts of Thomas Zane's works a bit too closely, forgetting to replace the name? If Alan is in his own book, but it's based on works by Thomas Zane. Is Alan before the book started already in Zane's novel? So many questions are left unanswered or even unposed that it leaves the player to not only answer them, but ask them in the first place. Influenced by Twin Peaks and Stephen King, the story takes the twists and turns that surrealist artists would take, the dialogue in some parts sounding straight out of What Would Jack Do?
You can see them too?
Hell, of course I see them. Come on, we gotta move.
Why?
Because that's the way the story goes.
Yeah.
Even the structure of the game was different. While Alan Wake started out as an open world game, it took Remedy a while to figure out the story they wanted was a bit too difficult to tell while keeping the game open world. While it may seem simple, open world games are extremely complex to get right. You have to factor in so much more as it pertains to the player. Here's a box. Say the box represents what you have to factor in as a game developer, so what the player will do, where they'll go, etc. Moving to open world, this box expands to more of an office building. Factoring all that while trying to tell a very specific story effectively, with as many twists and turns as a thriller has, is extremely difficult. Something that developers have been trying to do and only a few have gotten right, even since then. Something had to change, and the gameplay was the thing that had to. It moved from open world to more of a chapter-based approach, making it feel like a TV show. One of the things done, whether due to resources or a creative choice, was to keep the existing work done on the world and repurpose it. Whatever the reason was, it worked for the best, making it feel like an actual lived-in world, something developers now still struggle with. Another thing that made it feel real was the original game's product placement. The footage I captured was of the remastered version that removed all of that, but the original had so much product placement that it really didn't feel like product placement. It felt like these were just products. For instance, the batteries that you picked up were Energizer branded. These appeared so often that after the third time of picking them up, you're no longer picking up Energizer batteries, you're just picking up batteries that happen to be Energizer. The game didn't try to set itself in a fictional world to make you believe it. It brought the fiction to the real world, making it blend in, and so many little things contributed to that. Another thing that contributed to it was the mention of real-life people. Whether it was Alan referencing Stephen King or Agent Nightingale continuously calling Alan by other authors' names, they existed in our universe. We weren't observing theirs. While there were some aspects that were influenced by the early 2000s, the rest of it felt like it was just part of the universe. There was no crosshair, no aiming reticle. You shot where your flashlight was, an amazing way to make the crosshair dynamic, adding tension if you ran out of batteries while not having a dot burned into the center of your screen for the entire playthrough. While the game wanted the psychological reaction that horror gave, it was more focused on telling a story, letting the thrills and horror be confined to the story rather than the gameplay for the most part. There was no inventory management, a staple of the horror genre at this time. Ammo was somewhat scarce, your weapons and ammo resetting every chapter. While this made the beginning of some chapters tense, with the slightest amount of exploration, you're able to find plenty of ammo to get you by. Alan usually has a revolver, being able to find 2 types of shotguns and a hunting rifle on his journey. In addition to your normal weapons, you can find a flare gun. Very rare, when it's shot, it can explode multiple enemies at once. Another thing that can be found are flares. Different from a flare gun, they can keep enemies back and can wear down enemies with an area of effect light. And flashbangs act like a less powerful flare gun, a short throwing distance but devastating to enemies. In addition to different weapons, you can also find different flashlights. The heavy-duty flashlight, an overall upgrade, as well as the lantern, a flashlight that uses much more battery when aiming but wears down enemies faster. The best flashlight you can find is the heavy-duty lantern, the most powerful flashlight in the game, but it can absolutely annihilate batteries if aimed too long. With this, your best bet is to wear them down enough to shoot them, then make your shots count, especially if you're using the pistol. All of this combined together to make a beautiful symphony of never knowing what to expect, never knowing when to feel safe with your resources, but also not making you afraid of fighting the dark, just as Alan couldn't be. Any ammo you spent was ends to a mean, not a valuable resource, because right around the corner could be a slightly hidden chest containing ammo, batteries, and a flare gun to replenish whatever you spent threefold. I know that playing on Nightmare can change that, but that's an unlockable difficulty, and in my opinion, the normal difficulty is always what the developers intend for the experience unless they say otherwise. To this day, Remedy Entertainment continues to be risk takers, being unapologetically different and refusing to waver on creativity. They tell the stories they want to tell and refuse to do anything less. They don't care if it sells well, they don't care if it means it's their last game, as long as the story and experience they've been putting their entire soul into gets told the way they want to tell it. They're a dying kind, unfortunately, a studio of storytellers rather than business people. They don't have investors to answer to, only themselves once the story is told, and because of that, in my opinion, they have more on the line invested into these games. After all, our harshest critics are ourselves. Alan Wake is no exception. A weird story told through unique gameplay that was paced exquisitely. Well, except chapters 3 and 4, but I can forgive them for that. It's a game that's hard to replicate, if it even should be. Alan Wake deserves to be unique. While indie games are amazing at creating unique gameplay, the mix of unique gameplay and story is what sets Alan Wake apart, making theory crafting half the game. The lore rabbit hole having an ending, but you can't see down to the bottom, you can only see where it leads to. It circles around, touching the same points, but delving deeper each time. It's like a spiral. I just wanted to say thank you for all the support on the last video. Sticking around and watching the entire video, liking it, and all the positive comments really helped me. I'm excited to make more videos for everyone in the future, and if you want more updates on videos that are coming out or anything to do with me, I do have my Twitter and Blue Sky linked, so that way no matter which you use, you can follow me on social media.